Alright mate, how you doing? Welcome back to another episode of IMO. This one is all about VAR. We've been talking about it a lot this season. I've been wanting to make this video for a while. Loads of talking points. Should it stay, first of all? If it stays, should it change? A lot of people not happy with it. A lot of people had a lot of games ruined for them, both in stadiums and at home, and points lost because of VAR, although some people points gained as well. We've got to talk about both sides of it, so let's do just that. VAR, IMO, let's go. So, where do we start on VAR? Video Assistant Referee. It's been brought into the Premier League this season. We've seen it in football for a little while now. We had it at the World Cup. We've had it in multiple tournaments internationally. This is its first year in the Premier League. And it's not going down very well. Not with everyone, at least. A lot of people are not happy about it. It was always going to be a tough transition period. It's a big change for football. You know, every single week, every Premier League game and some other domestic competitions as well now have VAR. And there's a number of reasons people are being upset. One is the fan experience in the stadium, which has changed dramatically and definitely needs to be addressed. But also there's technical reasons as well with the actual the use of VAR, how it's being used in certain decision making and whether that is good for the game or not. Chiefly being offside decisions, right? People have seen these offsides being given as offside despite them not being given by the referee in the first occasion on the pitch. And then when it comes down to viewing how the technology is applied, they're seeing these lines be drawn. In some cases, there's literally millimetres between the line that was onside and the line that was offside. And people aren't happy about that because they view it as too much. They view it as too much technology, changing the game. It's like, should have just let it stand. The problem is it doesn't really work. When you've got a rule, it doesn't matter if it's 1 millimetre or 1 mile over. It's either over or it's not. And the technology's job is to show us when it's over. The rule is not the technology's fault. That's the first thing we've got to address. Some people are getting angry at VAR. They should be getting angry at the rule and the rule makers. If they don't agree that, you know, a certain amount of millimetres should be offside, that's not VAR's fault. That's just showing us based on the rule we created as humans. I actually think the rule is right, by the way. I just think it's the first time we're seeing it properly examined. What we used to see was a ref given offside, or a linesman I should say, given offside. We'd then see video replays on the TV games and we'd make our own opinion. We'd go, the line has a mare there, is clearly offside or whatever. But we couldn't do anything about it. We knew that. We accepted it. Whatever happened in the pitch or with the linesman and the ref on the pitch was how it had to go. Some things can be overturned at a later date, such as red card decisions, for example. But goals, offsides, you can't do nothing about it. Now, because you can do something about it with VAR, straight after a decision's been given on the pitch, we somehow feel like we've got the right to argue with that second decision. But we don't. VAR is just a better version of the original decision made by the ref and linesman. It's a more informed decision with more technology and more people enforcing it. The thing we should be annoyed about with VAR is the experience of watching, playing, and going to a game. It's changed it dramatically, and I think it can be changed for the better. The first thing we've got to change is the delay. It's way too slow, and perhaps this was always going to happen at first, but we've got to get better. There's way too much waiting between when the decision is given and then when it's potentially changed or not changed based on VAR. It's too slow. Whether it's the ref walking over to the little box to check it or waiting to hear something from the people in the VAR place, wherever that is in Stratford or whatever it is, and they get told, you know, what to do. It's just too slow. It's painful. We're used to a much faster paced game with football. One of the reasons we prefer it to other sports is because the ball's pretty much always going, whether it's a throw-in or a corner. Apart from injuries and things, it's an action-packed game, and VAR's sucking that out of it. I've got an idea for how we can change that, though. Before we get onto that, the other problem is the emotional changes that VAR has given people. They think their team scored a goal. They're cheering. They're going mental, particularly in the stadium. Then they find out it's gone, and they feel like something's been taken from them, when in fact, all they're actually doing is returning to an equilibrium they were at before the goal was wrongfully given in the first place. Likewise, it goes the other way as well. People forget about this with VAR. They always talk about the people who've had the goal taken away from them. They don't talk enough about the people that have got not a goal back, but they've stopped conceding one wrongfully. That's massive, particularly if you're a club that can't afford to concede goals. And maybe the cheer's not as big in the crowd when you've been rightfully not conceding a goal instead of wrongfully scoring one. That doesn't mean it's not as important or as fair. But there is this roller coaster of emotions you go through now as a fan watching your team and as a player and a manager, anyone involved in football, when you think you've got something and then you haven't. Now the first thing we've got to do is look at other examples. Okay, first of all, Serie A, Bundesliga, these leagues have had VAR for a bit longer than the Premier League, and they're much more used to it. They had painful first seasons as well, and they've come to accept it. So that's a good sign. It will come in the Premier League, and I do think even if we left it exactly as it was, we would come to accept it and get used to it a lot more. However, I do think it needs to change, and I have got some suggestions for that. But if we look afield to other sports as well, rugby, for example, not only do they use video assistant refereeing really well, they also have come to terms with, for example, a try, then going to a replay and actually being taken away. People are much more used to seeing that happen. They think they've scored a try, they know they've got to wait to make sure because it's a contentious issue. Oh, we didn't get the try, okay. That happens quite a lot. Doesn't mean it's not annoying. Like if you see a team in the Rugby World Cup final, you think you scored a massive try and you haven't, oh, it's annoying. But they respect the rules a little bit more in rugby. They respect the ref a lot more in rugby. And a couple of my suggestions for how we change VAR are going to come from rugby, but they're also going to come from tennis. Tennis, along with cricket, are both sports that use technology really well. One thing tennis has, which I think could be crucial to seeing VAR be better for football, is an appeal system. I think an appeal system is the best way to address the problem of the slowness, because it would reduce the amount of times you use VAR in a game, but also it would swap the emotional roller coaster being seen as a negative and change it to a form of entertainment in itself, an extra level of strategy that can be applied from the management side of football and the managers on the side of the pitch in knowing when to appeal a decision and when to ask for VAR to be used. It would make it more dramatic. These sports have all had their own version of VAR for a long time, whether it's called Hawkeye or whatever, and they've definitely improved the game. Football is a very dynamic sport with lots of moving parts and lots of different rules to apply to 22 different players at a time, and it's difficult to add something new like VAR, but that doesn't mean it's not for the best, although change is always hard. So we're always going to see this kind of backlash, particularly from the more old-fashioned fans who don't want to see the change. But to build out my appeal system idea, here's how I think it should work. Of course, this could change, but I think, for example, you give each manager 3 appeals maximum per game. Maybe less with football, maybe 2, I don't know. And just like in other sports, like tennis, if you use your appeal and you're wrong, the decision is not overturned in your favour, you lose that appeal. You don't get one back. If you use 1 of your 2 and you get that one wrong, you're down to 1. You've got 1 left for the game. However, if you use it and you're right, you don't lose it, you get to keep it, you've still got 2 going on in the rest of the match. How would these appeals work? Well, first of all, we've got to look at what it's been used for. Obviously, offsides is a key one. So basically, go back to how it was before. An offside would be given in the game, and what you'd need is someone on the bench that has access to the screen and the replays, and then within a certain amount of time, this is crucial because we don't want to stop the flow of the game, the bench have to signal something, whether it's from a button or in American football, you have the refs, they throw these little flags and these handkerchief things on the floor. I don't know how it would work exactly, but the bench would then signal from a certain team, we want to appeal, we want to appeal. Some sort of buzzer would go off in the crowd. It would be a bit of drama. The crowd would be like, oh, we're appealing. It would go to the replays, and it would be something to look forward to, because people know it's a tactic being employed as opposed to this thing that's being done to us as viewers, which is what it feels like now. But one way we can improve that even more with the way, for example, in the appeal system, when you have to watch the replay back of the VAR incident happening in the stadium, and some grounds, by the way, don't have screens. For example, Old Trafford still doesn't have a screen in the stadium, which I think is crazy. All grounds that are using VAR need to have a screen, and for the people in the crowd, they need to be not only shown the replay in the crowd, and this is another thing. Right now, they don't always show them because they don't want the players to see them and kick off if they disagree, and there's a little bit of a worry there. Got to get rid of all that. You've got to show the players and the fans all of it, but accept that it's part of an appeal system, so you know whatever happens, there's going to be an answer, and you have to be respectful of that answer. But also, as it's playing, have the refs mic'd up. The refs have to be mic'd up, and they have to be talking not only the players through what's going on, the viewers at home and the people in the stadium. This is how it works in rugby, American football. I think this is something that should have come into football a long time ago, and I'll tell you why it hasn't. It's because of a completely unrelated issue. It's because of dissent. There's an acceptance in football that dissent for many years has been allowed, and you can see it by watching the mouths of certain players say things to the refs. Disgusting language at times. There's no respect for refs, and this is something they're trying to get rid of. In the league that Hashtag United play in, for example, we have sin bins now, which are only used for dissent. A player will have to leave the pitch for up to 5 minutes at a time if they are rude or disrespectful to the referee, and the referee uses that rule at his will. They haven't rolled that out at the higher leagues yet, but it could be something, if this experiment is deemed successful, they do. Alternatively, you could also use the mics to deal with this. If players are being mic'd up and they're being heard to say things offensive to the ref, which would happen, they could either be punished in-game with things like a sin bin, or they can be punished subsequently as well. But the players have got to take it on themselves and their responsibility to know if everything's being mic'd up, they've got to behave a little bit better. But it would help with the VAR situation as well. I've been in grounds before when you just got no idea what's going on. And that needs to improve. But I think for this appeal system to work, you have to have a limit on how many you can use. There has to be a time limit on not only how much time could have passed since the incident occurred, but also how much time the referees have to address your appeal. And you probably need some sort of VAR coach, a guy, analyst, I should say, who sits on the bench and he's basically the left-hand man of the manager and says, yeah, we need to appeal that, we need to appeal that. And he helps them decide. And they go, yeah, we're appealing that. It would be good for drama, good for entertainment. It would be seen as a positive rather than negative. But there's definitely some stick VAR's getting that it doesn't deserve. The stick that it does deserve is around the speed of it. It is too slow. And if VAR doesn't change to an appeal system, they've got to speed it up. I know they're working on that, and I think that will happen inevitably anyway as we get more familiar with VAR and we get better at implementing it, basically. But it's crucial. But I think we've got to also look at, as fans, not just of our club, because most of the time people kick off about VAR, it is when it affects your club. Let's be honest. In general, in life, I always say, the time you should really take note when someone's annoyed about something is when they're annoyed about something that actually helps them. That's when you know they're serious or they have a real reason and they think it's just wrong on an objective level, not a subjective one. Like, for example, if someone is telling people not to vote for a particular political candidate whose actual policies help that person. You know, maybe it's a conservative person who's got policies that help a rich celebrity actually make more money, but he's telling everyone to vote for Labour. Well, you think about why they're saying that, because it's not in their interest to say it. Likewise with VAR. You shouldn't just listen to people who are kicking off about VAR because it's cost their team points. It should be people with objective opinions you're listening to who actually can see the game for what it is and aren't blinded by, you know, spectacles coloured of the same colour as their kit. But I think if you're having doubts on whether VAR is a good thing or not, you've got to just remember back to why it's been brought in the first place. The same reason we brought goal line technology in, right? If you're an England fan, remember Frank Lampard's goal against Germany, 2010 World Cup. Went on to lose that game. The goal wasn't given. It was this far over the line. That was the final straw. Goal line technology was brought in, and everyone loves goal line technology. And you know why they love goal line technology? Because goal line technology gives you goals much more than it takes away goals. It feels like it's giving you something as a football fan, and maybe you weren't celebrating and suddenly, hang on, it's gone over the line. Yeah, we're celebrating, it's a goal, that's fantastic. It's a positive. Whereas in VAR, more times than not, we're seeing goals be given and then, oh no, they're not given. We feel like it's taking something from us. And the reason that VAR tends to take things away more than it gives is because most of the things VAR is involved in are things that could have happened before a goal, like a foul or an offside, etc. Whereas for VAR to give a goal when it hasn't been given, it would have to be overruling ref wrongfully giving an offside. So basically for the offside issue, what we're seeing most is a linesman miss an offside because it's super tight, play goes on, a goal is scored, they check it, oh wait, no, it was actually offside by 3 millimeters, goal taken away. When someone is massively offside, the linesman, because they've generally got pretty good at their job, not everyone, but mostly for a lot of practice, and it's an unbelievably tough job being a linesman. I've tried it at a low level. You've got to be looking at two things at the same time. The ball's here, but the players are there. It's so hard. But generally, if someone's a metre offside, they get it. They get it right. We don't need VAR as much to go back. VAR has really been brought in to stop illegal goals. However, there are instances, and this is the one that's named the most when people talk about VAR, where it can stop things that stopped goals. For example, the Thierry Henry handball for France against Ireland in the playoffs. It stopped Ireland qualifying for a major competition. With VAR, it would have come back. He might have even got a red card. It would have given Ireland a much better chance of going through. So if we remember back to things like that, and imagine you're an Ireland fan, any Irish people watching this will resonate with VAR because they'll remember that incident fresh in their memory. That's why I brought up the goal line technology thing with Frank Lampard's goal. That's why English people are always happy to bring in goal line technology, because they remember that. Irish people will remember the Henry handball. A lot of you will support teams in the Premier League who have had goals taken away. I think West Ham are one of the teams that's been affected most by VAR in terms of points being taken away from them that they would have won or drawn games they lost instead because of a VAR decision. And it does hurt. The one that hurt the most was Declan Rice when he was deemed to have handballed a ball that led to a goal for West Ham, and really the ball hit him in the arm. There's nothing he could do. And as much as that annoyed me, and I think that VAR got that one wrong, VAR never gets things wrong. It's the people deciding whether a rule was broken. And in that instance, the thing that annoys us most isn't VAR. It's the rule being that the ball hitting someone's hand in any way is deemed a handball. That's a bad rule. Most people can agree that. That rule will probably change. VAR's job is just to enforce the rule. It's the people that are interpreting the information VAR gives you that are getting it wrong. So in my opinion, if you couldn't have told by now, I am for VAR. I want it to stay, but I do want it to change. I'd love for the appeal system to come in. I don't think it will. I think I'm really being a little bit hopeful on that one. But it still needs to change. Even if they don't bring in the appeal system, it needs to be sped up. Communication has to be better. I want to see refs with mics. I think the minimum we need is mic'd up refs, replays, everything talked through to the crowd quicker than it is now. Coupled with fans getting a little bit more used to it and a bit more accepting, because there's still human error involved at the end of the day. We're asking people, albeit a few more people that were involved before, to make decisions under pressure very quickly. But if we can't trust, however many people it is in that centre in Stratford, the VAR office, like 5, 6 people to get it right, who have been qualified and trained to do it, we might as well stop playing football. At some point, we've got to trust the officials. We can review it afterwards and we can say, look, what happened here? You got that wrong. But do you remember how many times it used to happen before VAR? Every single half-time, full-time on analysis shows, they'd be talking about, this was offside, the referee's got this wrong. There'd be managers getting in trouble and getting fined for making comments about the officials. This was designed to stop that. And as much as we're talking about VAR, all we're talking about is rules being put into place that people don't like. Change the rules, you get rid of the problem. On the offside one, when people complain about someone being given offside when it's a millimetre off, as annoying as it is to see when you're the team that would have scored the goal, how would you like it if your goal was taken away from you when your ball was 1 millimetre over the line? If it's over the line, it's over the line. If you're offside, you're offside. Deal with it. May I add though, as long as the technology is getting it right, another reason I think people don't like it is they're seeing these lines, this technology that's being used, the line of the onside defender or whatever and the offside player. They feel that it doesn't look right. Sometimes the angles are funny and the gap is so small. But maybe there needs to be a little measurement that comes on the screen, like 0.3 millimeters offside or something like that. I don't know. A little different kind of arrow or different dimension, or maybe an aerial view. Something needs to change to make people a bit more accepting of what they're seeing. No doubt about it, VAR is a hot topic right now, and it probably will remain one for a few more seasons. But I think it would be a huge mistake and a backward step if we got rid of VAR. I don't see it happening. I think we're going to stick to it. I think it's here to stay. I think the football world understands that. And as much as some people will complain, all it's actually doing is enforcing the rules we've made for football better than they were enforced before. If we don't like what's being enforced, we just have to change the rule. And we have to change a little bit as football fans, which is hard because we all love football and we've all grown up thinking it's amazing and you almost don't need to change it. That's the problem, is people are going, we don't need to change it, it was great. But there were massive injustices happening that could not happen now. That's progress. And when you consider the amount of money that's on the line, a team getting relegated, for example, on a tiny decision that could have been wrong before, that doesn't just make a fan upset. That loses people their jobs, their livelihoods, working at these clubs. Huge ramifications. What about the amount of money that's being bet on football? If you're betting money on football, hopefully responsibly, you want to know that if your bet is wrong or right, it was wrong or right because the game was enforced properly and there wasn't a huge mistake made that wasn't picked up because we didn't have the technology to do it. I don't think VAR is perfect. I have real issues with some of the implementation of VAR right now, but I do think it's for the best for football and it will get better. I really strongly feel the appeal system would change things dramatically, and I use the word dramatically on purpose because it would add drama in a good way. VAR would be a talking point in a positive way instead of seen as a negative. Let me know what you think. What do you think about the appeal system? What else do you think about VAR needs to change? Would you be in favour of scrapping it altogether or sticking by it and improving it over time? You know where I stand on it. I want to hear where you guys stand on it. Drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for more. I'll be reading your comments below and getting back to some of them. Make sure you've got the notification bell turned on as well so you know whenever I upload a new video. If you want to get yourself one of these beautiful #United kits, go to #UTD.com. Link in the description. Until next time, don't go changing.